And we're back to another episode of the Sin Permiso Podcast, a Latina lifestyle podcast. Guess who I have here today? We happen to have the same last name, and it's not a coincidence. Jennifer Pratt, my sister Jennifer Pratt, Esquire, attorney at law here in Miami, Florida.
Yeah.
And this is very personal. This podcast is going to be personal to you and to me.
Of course.
All right, so it's for the listeners listening, for the viewers viewing. I did tell my story on episode 1, but I didn't particularly get into the story of after William left. So for everyone, today Jennifer is my half-sister. She and I share a father. So after my dad left my mom, he met or he was with or whatever happened.
Or maybe wow.
Or maybe-
We don't know, but yeah.
While her mom and Jennifer was born a few years later. And we actually didn't meet until 2015 when, I went into good old Facebook and discovered the family. And then once I spoke to our aunt and our father, I came to Miami. And you guys all surprised me with this fabulous party here to meet me. And, here we are, fast forward 7-8 years later. And, the bond is there, right? Because you know what I feel, Jennifer? I feel like no matter what timeline, whose timeline, or what city or state, we all lived a little bit of similarities with respect of our dad. And I want you to, fill in and tell me a little bit about how you grew up, what your experiences were with dad, and a little bit more about relationship-wise and money mindset.
Perfect. So first of all, thank you for having me here.
Of course.
And congratulations. This is such an awesome idea. I love the name from the minute you marketed it, put it on Facebook. I watched that first episode actually. So I love the story, the Section 8 and all the family together. I saw it all and I thought it was really awesome. And I think anybody that knows where you are today and who you are today, that's amazing growth, and that's something that I'm very, very proud of you. And
Thank you.
I brag about you to all my
sister.
friends, and I'm just elated that we have any connection, let alone be related. So I see a lot of similarities in us.
I do too.
And so that's awesome as well. And as far as coming on and before I begin, I have very little regrets in life. And I got to tell you, one of my biggest regrets, I don't know if I've ever told you this, is that we didn't meet earlier, that we were robbed in a way of being able to, despite about whether our parents were together or not, with dad or whatever, but just because we have other half brothers that I do know that I did have a relationship with. And I just say to myself, coño, man, if I'd have known Peggy and I could have gone to Boston, un verano en Nueva York type thing, we would have been teenagers, even with the slight age difference, but still we're contemporary. Yeah. We could have had some really good times together, sis. Let's just say. But anyway, we have a lifetime. We've been making up.
And we've been doing
We've been making up for the lost time. So I wanted to start with that. So yeah, look, growing up, so I always knew that I had a sister named Peggy. I always knew. I told you this before, and when it was, I gotta be honest, I don't remember who told me or how it came about that you were in our lives, but I just remember being told, tal hora, tal dia, you're gonna be there, and I was like, okay, yes, I want to meet her, like Peggy, the Peggy from Boston that I
So you had heard about me.
I had heard about you.
Okay.
I knew there was, and I always try to keep track because this is quite a bit. To try to keep track of all the kids.
Family dynamic drama.
There's a lot of kids. So I was really excited to meet you. And when I met you and you were like normal and cool and down to earth and I could like actually have a conversation with you, I was like, oh my God, this is so. And that's when I told you, like, I'm like, man, we would have had some good times. But anyway, moving forward, as far as dad goes, my parents, for some reason growing up, I thought my parents had divorced a lot younger. It goes to show you that there are certain things you recall from your early infancy ages.
One of the things that you kind of block
but you
out.
Don't remember, right? But it turns out my parents actually didn't get divorced till I was like almost 4 or something like that. So they were actually together for
Well, that was his usual timeline, the 4-year-old, right?
I don't know, about 4. I don't think it went as far as 5, but between 3 and 4. And I want to say that at the beginning of the breakup, it was really bad. There was a lot of tension. Our father was 15 years older than my mother. So there was a lot of tension between them after the breakup. I'm not saying it was age related. I'm just throwing that out there. But it was tension. They were not, there was infidelity involved, which is what ultimately broke the camel's back or whatever, right? And that's and I'll tell you something that because I want to be candid with you here, and I want to like and I want people to relate, and I hope that maybe this could somebody could hear this and go, wow, maybe I should take a step back. And I am all feminist. I'm all about women's rights and all that good stuff. But I'll tell you, the 28-year-old that my mom was at the time, give or take, when she left my dad, let's say 30 at best, at oldest, versus who she is now, or more recent in years, una señora ya de cierta edad. She says to me, I wish I hadn't let those things, made me leave your dad, because ultimately who was affected was you. And as we all know, anybody it's always the children. The product, it's the children that really suffer more than anything. So, and she said, I let my pride get in the way. So for all the ladies listening out there, I'm not saying let your man cheat on you and treat you like dirt and, just totally disrespect you at all times of the day. But at the end of the day, I think you do have to do some sort of analysis. And like, my dad wasn't having affairs. Our dad was not, well, at least for my mom, it wasn't having affairs. It was alleged picaflor situations, here and there, flirtation. And in fact, when my mom left him, he didn't want to leave. He didn't want to leave her. He was like, no, please. Yeah. So, that to me strikes me as a memory that I remember of after the divorce, when they got, because they were married after they separated. And for years, there was a lot of friction between the two of them. And
that tends to be, occur when people break up. And what you just said, your mom made a good point. There's people that break up or get divorced, and it's not about cheating. It's just about, maybe the monotony of every day. There's other situations. They have no patience or tolerance. And I think there are people out there that should rethink that, because they can possibly make it work.
And I know that there are a lot of couples that have gone through cheating and have been able to make it work. And, we know certain couples that have gotten back together after cheating, but it's different when you really, really get over it versus you're still throwing it in the person's face.
And you want to work on it.
Then why did you stay with them, or why did you come back if you're just going to keep, rehashing it? In my mother's story with our dad, and I don't know, maybe I'm speaking de más here. I think that it had a little bit to do with the age difference, to be honest with you. I think it was her ego, and I think it was like, this guy is going to do this to me. Right. And I'm hot, and I just had a baby, and whatever, or, recently I got a kid. I think, this is just my opinion. I'm sure there was more to it. I'm sure it was much more complex than that. So they divorce, they move on, and those first few years, I'll tell you, it was difficult. It was really difficult because my parents hated each other, and they no se podían ver en pintura. I mean, they just could not get along. And I thank God, and I know that you didn't have this experience. I know that some of our other siblings didn't have this experience, but that is true. That thank God that at some point, I want to say probably around age 8 or 9, give or take. Again, I could be off. Maybe a little younger. Actually, no, a little younger, because I lived with Dad in 3rd grade. That's a whole other story. When I lived with Walter at the time, too. But I want to say sometime between, like, around 6 years old, maybe. So let me backtrack. Maybe around 6 years old, something happened. I don't know. And thank God it did. The light came shining down, and they learned to be civil. And with the years, they became friends. And I'm talking about good friends. Now, to be fair, because I think, I'm always thinking like a lawyer, like a judge, I want to be objective. Perhaps some of that may have had to do with the fact that Dad's family and my mom's family knew each other from the old country. Yes. They grew up apparently like in la misma calle, like in the same neighborhood or something like that. And even though my mom and dad never met, I guess because of the age difference probably, the families knew the family. So I don't know if that had something to do with it. Possibly. But no,
or maturing.
Nevertheless, they got over it and they became friends. And I tell you, despite me being a product of a divorced family, I think that I had a fairly normal childhood in the sense that my dad would come to birthday parties. He would be a part of, and even when my mom had, and even when he had all different, girlfriends or wives or whatever, my mom, of course, inviting,
but
they would come over.
Was the maturity. And that allowed you to have more of a normal childhood. Where in essence, my mom was full of resentment and hate and did not even allow him to call me or speak to me. So that right there shows the difference where The mothers are the ones that make the difference, right? And not that I'm, I understand my mom's resentment and I understand her pain, and it is what it is. I was also up north in a completely different state, but just for people that are listening today, they know, they can see that, they can hear it, and they can see it in you. You're the perfect example of how you have to put your ego last and put yourself and your children first.
I am in as part of my practice, one of the areas that I practice a lot of, especially recently, especially after I met my now husband Daniel, is family law. And I cannot tell you how much of parental alienation I see. And especially now that I'm a mother, I am like, oh, if somebody did that to me and my kid, like, wow. But I also, again, this is me always trying to look at all sides, and it's why I'm like a frustrated judge, right? Because I'm like, I'm being objective here. I do also see this part is, let's say your mom would have allowed dad to come back, and he would have picked you up once, and then he would have promised he was going to come back next weekend, but he wouldn't have come back next weekend. Probably wouldn't have come back ever again, or maybe not for another 5 years or whatever. As a mom, I think we also try to protect our children, and maybe your mom was also trying to protect you so that you wouldn't, ni pa bien ni pa mal, don't deal with that guy. And the day that you did finally deal, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps, literally. The day you finally did deal, she was like, you're a grown old woman, you do what you got to do. But I protected you. And the reason this is so ingrained in my mind right this minute is because literally this week we had a case like that where I'm talking to my client and I'm telling, and they're like, oh, but no, the dad tried to reach out to the kid, but the kid's 13 now. But the mom won't let. I said, you know what it is? I said, look, first of all, you're pissed because you're like, you weren't around for all the diapers, all the nasty stuff, all the trouble. And it's a boy with a dad. But now that he's 13, now that he's a little man, you want to come and you want to take him out for a boys' night. Now that he's fun, now that he's a little man, that he could be your little friend, now you want to be in his life. But what if you don't come back? What if you just come back once or twice, or you don't come back? You're not reliable. You haven't been reliable for 13 years. So I could see why some mothers, and look, sometimes it's a flip. I've had where it's the dad that's the primary custodial parent. The same thing. I could see how you might want to protect and say, esa es una loca, o esa es un loco. No, you know what? He hurt me. He's going to hurt my child. Let me not, But regardless, yes, going back to, anybody listening that they're in a divorce or anything like that, I can't tell you how many parents use the child as a pawn in the divorce, in the paternity proceedings, whatever it is. And it's like mind-boggling, because at the end of the day, it's not you and me, the adults, that are really hurt. It's that child who's being ping-ponged around, who doesn't know, am I getting picked up this weekend? Does my daddy love me? Does he not? You say he doesn't. He says he does. It's the child.
And it happened to one of our cousins who I talked to, because obviously not only was it our dad, but his brother as well. So our cousins, it's like a family thing. She was promised that she would get picked up, and sometimes she wouldn't. So it was disheartening. So, you brought up a good point, Jennifer. That's possibly.
Growing up, there were, I can't tell you the number. I'm sure, though, I do recall that there were times que papá se desaparecía. We didn't know where he was. And I'll share a funny story. My mom's probably going to kill me about this one, but I'll share a funny story with you all. There was, so my mom, again, and it's just the ego, but again, I get it. She never put dad on child support. Never put him on child support, even though she had every ability to and could and whatever. So here and there, she would try to, oh, hey, give me something. And look, now that I'm a parent, I'm like,
well, you know what he did? He finagled everyone. He was a charmer. He charmed the pants off everyone. So
he was a big charmer. Huge. He was a big charmer. At the time, he was a taxi driver. And back in those days, well before the Uber days, how it worked was that if you wanted to go into the Miami International Airport, you had to wait in a line, a taxi line, like a huge parking lot of taxis that would be taxing, like waiting to go. And you would just hope to God that it was a long run, because if it was a short run, you just wasted 3-5 hours. It could be hours. And dad, in a very hustler way, because I have to share this, because...
So is this where we get our hustle?
I was just going to say, because a little bit of this hustler mentality that you and I have, and I know you have for sure, is dad. I'm telling you now. Dad said, I'm here 3-4 hours waiting for this ride. It might be a $200 ride. It might be a $15 ride. What can I do to burn this time? And not just burn it like everybody else playing dominoes or whatever else they were doing. Dad would take a little cooler and he would sell ice cream and chips and soda to all the taxi drivers that were waiting. And I mean, that was his little side hustle, his little cash side hustle. So one day, my dad se le había desaparecido a mi mamá, and she was livid. And she took me down there to that taxi place. And I don't know how she made her way in there, but she got in the actual, like it was the parking lot of the taxis. And she found my dad's taxi. Y le hizo un escándalo. And I think Dad just pulled out whatever water cash he had. He said, shut up, leave, please, you're embarrassing me. What are you doing? But that was one of the memories I have of when they were still learning to get along with each other. My mom did not play about that. But eventually they did. And look, it was a beautiful thing. And, he was at my wedding. He was at every important event in my life. And I will say, again, for any parent that's going through a divorce, that is the best thing you can do for your kid. Because I'm not going to say 100% I don't have daddy issues.
I think we all do.
But right, I think anybody, even if you had
your daddy, you have issues.
But I have to tell you that is something that in retrospect, as a child, maybe I didn't recognize it and I didn't realize the beauty of it. But now, especially as a family law attorney, I thank my mom, and I did thank Dad in life before he passed away. Like, thank you so much for like getting along with my mom, because I know that you don't have to, because you don't. You really don't. You could just live your separate life and just see your kid separately, and that's it. So yeah, I think that is the better route that people should take.
So you brought in the hustle, right? This is where we get the hustle from Dad. You grew up, in certain different circumstances. It wasn't like you grew up with a lot. Sometimes there was a lot, sometimes there was a little. You grew up in, was it North Lauderdale?
It was, so we moved around a lot. We lived between Miami and Broward, but the normalcy, like where we didn't have to keep moving every year, because every year we would move somewhere, was starting 4th grade, which was North Lauderdale. And then my 6th grade year, which is when my mom met her husband, the father of my little sister, we moved to Margate. So, and from there, my life became a little more normal because, listen, second income came in the house, let's keep it real. And,
things got better.
Things got better.
So what made you go into law school?
I always wanted to be a lawyer. I was very good at arguing, and my mom says that growing up, and she says, prepárate, because I have a feeling at least one of your daughters is going to be the same. My favorite word was why. Why for everything. And I don't know if this is maybe typical. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe every kid says why a lot. But
some kids, but not every kid.
But I was very, and she would answer me and say, pero por qué? Pero por qué? And por qué? And I just keep asking why. So, and I did like that. There were also a few, which I won't get into detail here, but there were also some personal things in my life that happened. Certain people that went to prison that I cared about. Certain people that I saw have to injustices with the law that certainly encouraged me and said, I want to be a lawyer and help people in some way, shape, or form. Whether it be on the immigration end, which I also practice, or whether it be, in some other capacity. So I was inspired by personal things in life too that I saw. But I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. And in fact, prior to being a lawyer, I was a high school teacher. I ended up...
Fun fact. I didn't know that.
Fun fact, yeah. I was a high school teacher. It just kind of happened. I was at FSU for undergrad. I had done my honors thesis with my professor. Shout out to I love him, Dr. Herrera. To this day, we keep in touch. And and so I didn't know. Again, this all goes to like generational thing, right? I didn't have, well, I did, but I didn't. I didn't have an older sister. I didn't have anybody that had gone to college, that had, and less law school, right? So I didn't have anybody guiding me through anything. And, I basically was like, what am I going to do with my life? I want to go to law school, but I'm not sure what, am I going to be able to afford it? Am I going to get in? Just a lot of questions. And long story short, I remember going into his office and he said to me, well, there's this program. A lot of my former students have done it. And after you finish the program, they've gotten into every school they've wanted, any grad school they wanted. Really?
It's always that mentor at the right time, right place.
Shout out to Dr. Herrera, man. He's a great guy. Changed my life, really, because had he not introduced me to that program, so many things that have happened in my life would not have happened. And he told me about the program. Teach for America is the name of the program. It's a national program. I applied. I went to the interview. I'll never forget, the interview was in Atlanta. I was living in Tallahassee, FSU. I drove in my little 1997 Mitsubishi Mirage. The day that I left, my tire blew out. It was a holiday. Everything was closed. I don't know how to change a tire. I somehow came across, I don't know, some place and the guy changed the tire. I had to beg him, flirt with him. The things you have to do at age 20, 21, bro, to get things done. But, I did what I did. Drove all the way to Atlanta. I stayed at some girl's house that I barely knew, that was a friend of a friend. But just because I couldn't even afford the hotel room, so I had to hustle, always hustling.
Always hustling.
I went in. I had no idea what I was doing. I did a lesson plan. And then I'll never forget at the end, you had to pick where you wanted to go. It's a national program, so you could go, but it's only in low income areas. So South Dakota, but you were gonna work with like the Native Americans of South Dakota. This, that, whatever. California, New York, and you have to give them 1, 2, and 3. Your first choice, your second choice. So I wrote out, and at first I said Miami and Atlanta, because I said, okay, Atlanta, it's not too far from Miami. Mm-hmm. And I remember as soon as I was gonna give in the document, I said, scratched it all up, only left Miami. I remember I came back to Tallahassee, and I met with Dr. Herrera, and he said, how'd it go? Then I told him everything. I was so excited. I think it went well. I think they liked me. I think they were receptive to me. Okay, what cities did you pick? I said, I only picked Miami. Oh my God, ese hombre me casi me come. He's like, who do you think you are? There's hundreds of applicants, and everyone has to pick 3 cities. And you just pick Miami, and you think you're that special? And I knew what he was doing there. I am that special, but he was just trying to wake me up. Wake up. This is not the real world. You know.
Have a little bit of humility.
Yes,
humbleness.
exactly. And for me, it wasn't humility or whatever. It was that I just really wanted to go back to my family. After being at FSU, being far away, and mind you, I was only there for 2.9 years with 2 degrees. I hustled.
You sure
to
did.
go through that college life quick. I just wanted to go back to South Florida. I wanted to go to Jodedera. I wanted to go to South Beach, man. I was done with the Tallahassee life, And I was
a little slow for you, huh?
A lot. And I was like, you know what, Dr. Herrera, que sea lo que sea. But I'll tell you, deep down inside, I was so scared to go back to the hood and look like a failure and look like, mira esta. She thought she was all that.
¿Qué pensó?
She thought because she went to FSU, she went to, not out of state, but, I went away for school. A lot of people I went to school with didn't go away. At best, maybe, which is nothing wrong. If I hadn't been for my scholarship, I would have done the same thing. Community college, etc. And taking another route, and when I got the acceptance saying Miami, I remember I called them. I said, I guess I am special, But anyway, fast forward, I ended up being a teacher at Miami Northwestern Senior High School, home of the Bulls in Liberty City. Thank you very much, and I loved it. It was a great experience. I said to myself, this is what I want to do. I get to talk for 8 hours a day. Can you tell? I like to talk.
And they're going to listen.
And they got to sit there and listen. This is a dream job. And I had aspirations. I said, I'll do this for a while. Eventually, I'll become an administrator. And eventually, I want to be a principal. And all the students flock to me. And we have pep rallies. And it's going to be so great. So I called my mom. And I said to her, Mommy, I've decided to stay in education. And I'm not going to be a lawyer anymore. I'm not going to go to law school. Quiet.
Silence.
Like, hello? Are you there? And she's like, yo no vine a este país a limpiar inodoros para que usted se quede maesterica. You are going to law school. You understand? That's the end of this conversation. Click. And now in hindsight, I tell her, and she says, look, the truth is, it would have been fine if you would have been a teacher. I just said that because I knew you could be more. And that's just, again, I'm not saying that being a teacher is not good.
Not at all.
She just wanted me to move on to that other part.
She knew what your real calling was going to be.
And my calling was to be a lawyer. And she knew it, and she was like, I'm not going to. So I called Dr. Herrera. I said, he's in education. He's going to back me up. And he said to me, Jennifer, I'm honored that you want to be in education. I think it's wonderful. I'm sure you're a great teacher. But the law system needs more people like you.
Yes.
There are not enough Hispanic women lawyers, and they need more people like you to represent more people like us. And I think that you would better serve our community if you became a lawyer. And I was like,
he needed you to be a hero. Everyone needed you to be a hero. That was your real calling.
And then I went to law school.
A different type of hero, not that a teacher is not.
Oh, a teacher. Hello, it was Dr. Herrera, a teacher or a professor, but still, who basically changed my life. And I had many good teachers along the way that changed my life.
But he saw something else in you, the same thing as your mother did.
Yeah. So they pushed me to it, and I went to law school. And I'll tell you, I would not do law school, not even if you gave me $1 million again.
It was tough.
It was one of the worst experiences of my
How
life.
do you feel that law school or even being an attorney have been different for you as a Latina?
I went to where I don't know the statistics, University of Miami, in Miami. I don't know the statistics, so I don't want to misspeak, but definitely there was not a lot of Hispanic women there. I mean, there were. I want to be clear, there were, but I'm positive that we were outnumbered. I think that, you know, how did it make me feel like that? I would say that being a woman, period, forget about the Hispanic part, that's a sprinkle on top, right? But just being a woman, period, you're automatically doubted, is what I have found.
Mhm.
And I've also found that, particularly, and this is the truth, older white attorneys, male white
Mhm.
attorneys, tend to, sort of talk down. Not anymore. I'll tell you, at the beginning, I'm going into my 13th year. So at the beginning,
You've seen the shift.
and I gotta tell you, I was never afraid, but there's always, then this is something that I've always struggled with, is just the self-doubt about whether I'm good enough. And I think there's a name for it. It's like I don't know, whatever. There's a name, but like, am I really supposed to be here? And why am I here? Why? I remember the first day of law school, you introduce yourself, and like, this guy went to Harvard for undergrad, this guy went to Brown. I remember thinking, did I really get accepted into here? Because these guys went to Harvard and Brown. I went to FSU. I don't know. I'm like English and history major, right? He's like biochemical engineer. Like, okay. But, after I started getting over that, and it just took.
Realizing that you did belong and that you're here for a reason. This is your mission. This is your
now
truth.
I don't let any of these guys spook me or any. I'm like, whatever, sure, and sometimes the bark is louder than the actual bite. So it is what it is. But I do think, and then with the Hispanic, and I'll tell you, and I don't know if you get this, maybe not because you have the calle in there, but oftentimes it has happened
all the time.
All the time, they don't expect to see this face when they see the name Jennifer Christine Pratt.
I have
on the
showed up.
paperwork.
I have showed up, and they literally will look beyond me.
Yes!
And say, and I say, hi, how are you?
Yeah.
Hi, we're waiting for Peggy Pratt. And I'll say, that is me. So I can totally get where you're coming from, because it happens especially as an attorney. So you love it.
that definitely, and I'm like, no, it's me. And I've had attorneys, some are cooler than oye, yo pensaba que you were like, I can't believe you speak Spanish. I'm like, fluently. Yeah, hi.
Sometimes Cuban, sometimes Colombian, but here I am.
Yeah. I'm very Cuban sometimes because, the influence. And then sometimes when I start talking Colombian, they're like, oh, you're Colombian.
So you went to school. You became this badass attorney.
I'm becoming. I'm still becoming.
No, you're there. I've seen you arguing. I've heard you on the phone. You have twin girls.
I do.
You had your babies. You have your twin girls. You're a mom now. What do you want to instill in them?
Oh, God, what a great question. I mean, I would really like to instill in them the one thing that I think set me back. I feel like I could have been more. Is that self-doubt.
Feel
man.
the same
that
all the time.
And I don't know if it comes
from
our upbringing.
That's exactly
from the
where it
lack
comes
of
from.
the
Latino
familial. I don't know.
scarcity mindset, and this is why we talk about this.
Yeah. The self-doubt for me was, at FSU. I mean, just I wish I would have had. And look, it's not because my mom didn't tell me that I was good enough. It's not that. It's just, also telling them to get mentors, not just me and Dan. Like, they need other people that they can look up to, and like people like you. I want them to talk to you and to have other different ideas, and they don't have to just be like mommy and daddy. They can have their own personalities. And look, the truth is, actually, I was talking about this with my sister-in-law the other day. I said, wow, her daughter, she's so smart, and she's going to be a CEO one day. And she looked at me, and mind you, she's a doctor, anesthesiologist, and she looked at me and said, oh no, I hope she marries rich and never has to work. And I thought to myself, that's, listen, working kind of does suck. I'm not gonna lie, So
some of us have to go the rough, hard route.
And I was taken aback a little by that, but coño, man, that is not the Latino mindset.
That is never the Latino mindset.
And I'm thinking to myself, that may not be a bad mindset after all. I'm not saying she's not. It was also in jest. It was also kind of like joking.
Yeah, joking.
But I guess the point is like, one thing for sure that I want to instill in them that connects to that is like, work smart, not hard. because you really got to be smart and strategic in the things that you do and who you hang with who you associate
Your
with and
circle
what
is
you're
huge.
doing.
Yeah, we are the accumulation of the 5 people that we hang out with most. And definitely based on our upbringing, right? We grew up hard. We didn't have our dad here. There was definitely adversity, right? Definitely adversity is the mother of invention. So we had to invent and reinvent ourselves to get where we are today. It's really important that people that are listening also listen to that keyword that you said earlier, which is a mentorship. There's always, and there have been people in my life, there's been mentors that have come and crossed my path that have set that path for me. Instead of going left, I went right. And it sounds like Dr. Herrera was that to you. So mentorship is key. And there's a lot of people out there listening that, have had that mentor. And I just want to reiterate that philanthropy, because we talk about philanthropy, and philanthropy isn't always just giving back financially. It's giving back your time, sharing, and having mentorship. And I'm sure that you're going to want to be a Dr. Herrera soon, and that will be your moment where you'll be able to do that for others.
I want you to know I still keep in touch with several of my students from when I was a high school teacher. I'm sure it helps that I was literally 21 and some of them were 17, 18. So we were almost like the same age. Crazy. But I still keep in touch with a lot of them. And I do think that I have served as a mentor to a lot of those folks, to a lot of those students. And I'm happy that I've been able to play any role in anything positive in those students that I touched, and even like interns that I've had at my law firm. More recently, I signed up to be a mentor for children that are part of the GAL program, which is Guardian Ad Litem, which is you become the attorney for the child. So I don't necessarily, I do want to do that. That's also one of the things that I just signed up for too, to be a GAL in a family law case, a pro bono GAL. Haven't gotten on my wheel yet, haven't been tapped yet, but in that same program, they have a mentorship program. And so what I want to say is, not only is it important for people to look out for mentors, you'd be surprised how many people want to be a mentor, but for people to also be mentors. It's important that if you know something really well, or you're good at something, and someone, especially if someone taps you for help, there tends to be this attitude of scarcity, of like, no, I don't want to share what I know because
that's a Latino mindset.
And I'll tell you, literally yesterday, shout out to Christian, this attorney that I just happened to meet on Facebook, on one of the Facebook pages of attorney. I had a question, and this guy sat on the phone with me for almost an hour, telling me what statutes to look at, what the key words that I have to drop in this case that I have, a real case. And I told him at the end of the conversation, I said, wow, thank you so much for taking this time to talk to me, because I hope it comes back 3 times to you, man, because you just gave me, like, I'm going to use this on this case, and let's keep it real, I'm going to use it on the next 10 cases. And, like, you really, like, change something in my life right here and then, and for my clients.
For sharing.
So thank you for sharing.
He did a service to you, to your clients, and to everyone involved.
Help people, share your templates, share your ideas. It's fine. At the end of the day, I feel there's enough business for everybody. And there's enough people. I think I saw an Uber fact that next week we're going to be at over 8 billion or something people in the world. Like, it's a new record. We've never had this many people on Earth or something. So plenty of people out there, plenty of business. I promise you.
But Jennifer, listen, you're a kick-ass attorney.
Thank you.
And even though you're my little sister, I look up to you. Keep kicking ass, keep being motivational, and be that mentor to many. And thank you for being on Sin Permiso.
Thank you for having me, and congratulations again.
Love you.
Love you too.